You ever see something that's just completely broken? Like maybe beyond repair? Well, that's where our story starts today. We're going to dive into the tale of a city that was nothing but rubble, and the one guy, a pretty unlikely hero, who decided he was going to rebuild it all. And we're not just talking about stone walls here. We're talking about rebuilding its heart, its very soul. So, let's set the scene. The year is 445 BC. And for more than 140 years, a century and a half, Jerusalem, which was once the shining heart of the Jewish nation, is basically a garbage heap. This quote you see, that's the devastating news that kicks everything off. I mean, think about it. The walls that were meant to protect everyone? Gone. The gates, where business happened, where justice was served? Just ash. The people there were living in this constant state of shame. It was a total disaster.
Okay, so how did things get so bad? You really have to understand what happened before Nehemiah even enters the picture. The Jewish people had been dragged out of their own land and forced into exile in Babylon for 70 long years. Now, some had eventually been allowed to come back, and they'd even managed to rebuild their temple. But here's the kicker. Decades later, their capital city, Jerusalem, was still completely defenseless. This was more than just a political problem, you know. It was this deep, deep source of shame. They were physically back home, but the nation itself was still broken.
So who's going to be the one to fix this mess, right? You'd probably think it would be some tough-as-nails general or a powerful high priest. But no, the hero of this story is a guy named Nehemiah. And his job? He was the cupbearer to the king of Persia. Now don't let that title fool you. This was not just some guy pouring wine. The cupbearer was one of the king's most trusted advisors, a person with huge influence. He was living the good life, in total luxury in the Persian palace, miles and miles away from the mess in Jerusalem.
But even with all that comfort and luxury, when he heard what was happening back in Jerusalem, it just broke him. And his reaction wasn't just, oh, that's a bummer. It was this deep, soul-level response. He didn't just send a sympathy card. For days on end, he wept, he mourned, he fasted, and he prayed. He poured his heart out, confessing the failures of his people and basically holding God to his own promises. It was intense.
All right, so this brings us to what we're calling the cupbearer's audacious plan. Because feeling sad is one thing, right? But Nehemiah, he didn't just stay sad. He took all that grief and sorrow and channeled it into an actual concrete plan, a really, really bold one at that. He turned his pain into a blueprint.
And check this out. He didn't just rush off. He waited. For 4 whole months, he prayed and he planned. He was playing the long game, waiting for the absolute perfect moment to make his move. This was no impulsive, emotional decision. This was a calculated, strategic move that he was building up for months. And then the moment arrived. The king actually notices that Nehemiah looks sad, which, by the way, was a super dangerous thing back then. You just didn't show up looking bummed out in front of the king. So the king asks him, hey, what's wrong? And in that split second, with everything on the line, before he says a single word to the most powerful man on earth, he fires off a quick prayer. It's just an amazing picture of faith in the middle of a crazy high-stakes moment.
And because he'd spent those 4 months planning every detail, when the king asks him what he wants, Nehemiah is locked and loaded. He lays out this perfect 3-point plan. Step 1, send me to Judah to rebuild the city. Step 2, I'm going to need official letters so I can travel safely. And step 3, I'll need timber for the construction, specifically from your royal forest. I mean, the guy had thought of everything.
And the crazy thing is, the king says yes to all of it. He doesn't just give his blessing, he throws in a military escort for good measure. But Nehemiah, he doesn't chalk it up to his own smarts, or maybe the king being in a good mood that day. Nope, he's crystal clear about why it worked. He just says, the good hand of my God was on me. Simple as that.
Okay, so now we're at the next stage, building a wall under siege. Now, you'd think, arriving with the king's permission, royal letters, supplies. This should be a piece of cake, right? Yeah, not even close. The second he gets there, Nehemiah's mission runs into some serious, and I mean ferocious opposition.
But again, Nehemiah's smart. He doesn't just roll in and start barking orders. He's strategic. First, he takes 3 days to just plan. Then, in the middle of the night, he goes out secretly to inspect the damage himself. He wants to see with his own eyes just how bad it is. It's only after he's done his own recon that he calls the leaders together, lays out the vision, and drops the bombshell that he has the king's backing. And his speech, it totally works. The people are fired up and ready to start rebuilding right away.
And what happens next is this incredible citywide team effort. We're not talking about a hired construction crew here.
You had the high priest working on one gate, goldsmiths, and even perfume makers working on another section. There's even a mention of one guy's daughters pitching in. Everyone got assigned a section of the wall, a lot of times the part that was right in front of their own house. So everyone had skin in the game, literally.
Of course, the local enemies, guys named Sanballat and Tobiah, they were not happy about this. And they were relentless. At first, they just made fun of them. They were laughing, saying things like, "What are these pathetic people doing? A fox could jump on that wall and knock it over." But then, they saw it was actually working. The wall was going up. And that's when the joke stopped and the threat started. Their mockery turned into a plot for an actual armed attack.
So now the people are terrified. They're facing real threats of violence. But Nehemiah's response is just so powerful. He tells them, don't be afraid of them. Remember the great and awesome Lord and fight. Fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your families. He didn't just say pray harder. He said, remember God and get ready to fight. He turns the whole construction crew into a citizen army organized by family, ready to protect their own.
Can you even picture this? Their resolve was just off the charts. The work did not stop. They just adapted. Half the guys would stand guard with weapons ready while the other half kept building. People carrying bricks and mortar would have their tool in one hand and a sword in the other. Every single builder had a weapon strapped to his side while he worked. This wasn't just a construction project anymore. It was building a wall in the middle of a war zone.
So let's talk about their unbreakable spirit. Because just when you think things can't get any harder, as they're fighting off enemies on the outside, a poison starts spreading on the inside. A crisis of injustice that was about to blow the whole project up from within.
And the problem was just awful. You had the poorer families giving everything they had to this rebuilding effort, working day and night. And at the same time, the wealthier Jews were taking advantage of them. They were charging them ridiculous interest rates, and when people couldn't pay, they'd seize their farms, their vineyards, even sell the children into slavery to cover the debt. It was a total violation of God's law. And when Nehemiah found out, he was absolutely furious.
This is what great leaders do, right? They don't shy away from the hard stuff. Nehemiah confronted this problem head-on. He didn't just grumble about it. He called a huge public meeting, put the nobles and officials on the spot, and publicly shamed them for their greed. He made them swear an oath right there in front of everyone to give back all the land and money and to cancel all the debts. Just like that, he restored justice and brought everyone back together.
All right, final section. More than just stones. So they've dealt with the enemies outside and the corruption inside. The project is finally finished, but as we're about to see, this whole thing was never really just about building a wall.
So that massive, impossible task of rebuilding the entire wall of Jerusalem, how long do you think it took? Years? Decades? Nope, 52 days. Just 52 days. It happened so fast it was like a miracle. And their enemies, when they heard, they completely lost their nerve because they knew there was no way this could have happened without help from God.
And the dedication party for this new wall? Oh man, it was a massive celebration. Nehemiah organized 2 huge choirs to march on top of the wall, starting at opposite ends and meeting up at the temple. Imagine that sound. The music, the praise, the celebration was so loud that people could hear it from miles and miles away. It was like a giant announcement to the whole world. Jerusalem is back.
And this is where you see the real point of it all. That stone wall, it created a safe place for a spiritual rebuilding. With the city secure, the people all came together to hear the law of Moses read out loud for hours. They started celebrating old festivals they'd forgotten about. They confessed their sins as a community and renewed their covenant, their promise with God. The wall was about protecting their bodies, for sure, but this was about reviving the nation's soul.
When the people heard God's law and started crying over how far they'd fallen, Nehemiah told them something amazing. He said, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." He was teaching them that the power to rebuild, the courage to fight, all of it, it didn't come from just gritting their teeth and trying harder. It came from a deep joy that was found in their connection with God.
So that leaves us with this final thought. The story of Nehemiah, it's about so much more than a pile of ancient rocks, right? It's about what real leadership looks like. It's about having a vision and the guts to fix what's broken. And it kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What are the walls in our own lives, in our own communities, that are broken down right now? What walls of division or injustice or just plain neglect are just sitting there waiting for someone to come along with a plan, a prayer, and the guts to say, let's start rebuilding?